I have a little secret that I have to share with you. I'm currently running on 4 hours of sleep, 4 hours of sleep, and an irresponsible amount of caffeine. Because in the next about 12 hours, I sit for my SAT examination. Now, Ananya, why would you be here and not preparing at home? Because a few days ago, I heard a question answered in a way that made me realize a test score, that's the least of our problems. So let me tell you what happened. Recently, I was at this college counseling seminar, and as a 17-year-old, college counseling seminars serve one very important purpose in my life. They help me avoid family functions. Moderator asks us a classic question all this time. What do you want to do when you grow up? Hands shoot up. A billionaire, a tech entrepreneur, a hedge fund manager. Now, their ambition was good for them. What struck me, though, was the direction of their ambition. It was vertical, upward, climb, 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 rise above the rest. And if you listened closely enough, a little lonely. So, the funny thing about moments like these are, once they bother you, I tried to get rid of it. I tried a meditation. 5 whole minutes I lasted. This thought chased me. And a week later, it chased me to a very different room. Some of you know from my introduction that I help run the Vishalakshi Foundation, where we feed and educate impoverished kids. Now, I was sitting in our little dream school in the heart of Ambedwadi slums, classroom floor, and the question came to me again. So I asked these kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? One of our students said, a soldier, to protect my country. Another said, a doctor. And a girl with the widest smile said, a teacher. Do you see the difference? Their dreams, they were horizontal. They were about holding the world together. Is that it? Do people with more resources dream of escaping the world? And do people with less resources dream of fixing it? How does that work? Isn't that backwards? More importantly, how did that happen to us? Because the difference between the two rooms wasn't just privilege, it was age. We've all been a kid when the world has felt enormous, and we were absolutely sure that we were destined to do something awesome. What happened to your childhood dreams? To be an astronaut, a nurse, a pilot, a superhero even? What happens as we grow up is we learn to make them more practical. We compromise, which in Asian parenting terms is just pick science or commerce. Now, jokes apart, what we see here is that the first room, again, dreamt of escaping the world. The second room dreamt of participating in it. The question to ask here is, how did we manage to convince a child that he stands alone? We live in a moment in time where children, young people, are trying to tell us something important. But it's not verbally, it's through their behaviors, it's through anxieties and burnouts. And we don't give them the right tools. History has showed us, that societies don't fall when they run out of money, no. Societies fall when they run out of meaning, purpose. How does this manifest in our education systems? We have literally educated the instinct to save the world out of a child. Now, before I elaborate on what that means, full disclosure, I love competition. I love it so much. Truthfully, I'm not being sarcastic. I love it as much as some people like sunsets. But even I know that we've gone too far when children who are born naturally collaborative, naturally curious, naturally eager to help, learn to choose competition over connection. Do you see what's happening here? So, before we go ahead, I don't want to attack the education system that needed predictable workers in predictable jobs. So it sorted learning into neat little boxes. Math here, literature there, please keep ethics far away from business class. This was the perfect means to an end. But our ends, they've changed. We still have this academic Olympics where children were racing towards this grading curve. In this grading scheme, an A grade isn't just an achievement as much as it's a seat. And seats are limited. This makes us think that our success requires another's failure. How motivational. I mean, in the right circumstances, it's all worth it if you come out on top, right? Well, ironically, no. Let's look at Jemima Rodriguez. Just this week, our national icon. She's one of the brightest cricket stars our country has ever seen. Just this week, she spoke to the news about after every game, playing her at the highest quality. She called her mother to cry out of anxiety. If the champions of the world, the ones that this system was built to reward, if they feel defeated, what hope do we have for our teenagers? Now, this begs us to the point where you think I'm going to have a perfect 5-step solution for the anxiety crisis, for the educational crisis. But that's the linear thinking that I'm trying to criticize right now. So I'm going to take you through a journey with me. Thousands of years ago, a prince sat under a Bodhi tree, and he asked the most human question imaginable: why the world was filled with so much suffering. That prince, if you've guessed, was Buddha. And he recognized something that our modern world has forgotten. He called it Pratitya Samutpada, which is a long word for something so simple. Nothing exists in isolation. I am here because of the rain that fell on the wheat that became a bread that the farmer grew. I am here because of every teacher that's ever failed me and everyone who's ever believed in me. Now, humans, we do this curious thing where we like to pretend we're self-made. But that's not the truth. We are touched by everyone who has ever been in our lives and everyone who's ever touched their lives. This comes down to you asking, cute. That's a nice spiritual metaphor. But let's test it. Name one major global challenge that we face today that can be fixed with one person or one country or one discipline. Poverty? No. The water crisis? Still no. AI governance, maybe? Absolutely not. So essentially, we're creating a generation of brilliant young minds who can name every function in a calculator, but have never been asked the one question that really, truly matters. What kind of a human being do you want to be? When we take the top graduates of this system and we place them in positions of global power, governments, boardrooms, the tech industry, and then we act shocked, shocked that they cannot see the connection between their economic decisions and a child going hungry at night, between their environmental policies and the literal survival of our generation. This is not an information crisis. We have more information on our hands than we need. This is a character test, a collaboration test. And that brings me to something I love to talk about, I love to reference. This was the only universal treaty signed by every country in the world. Yes. So what happened is, scientists detected a hole, a big one, growing in our ozone layer above Antarctica. And nobody hesitated. Rich countries immediately banned those chemicals. Poorer countries were helped. They were given the means, the technology, the time to transition to better chemicals. And so what we did here with this unified global effort is make the most successful environmental agreement in human history. In fact, the ozone layer, it's healing. And by 2026, it will be fully healed. Think about that. That is proof of what you and me were talking about right now. So, what do we do now? I'm going to tell you what the problem is, and since we already know that collaboration helps and people have seen it, why it's not being enacted. It's because when we look at students, when we look at disengaged students, we say, let's throw technology at them. AI, personalized learning, finally a cure for boredom. But kids are not bored because they don't like learning. Kids are bored because the material doesn't reflect the real world we live in. That's a problem now, because now more than ever, we need kids who can question society. We need kids who can question the test papers, preferably the test papers, because the world is already too full of people who don't think for themselves. And that brings us to teachers. We need them now more than ever. Look at Finland. It's one of the best education systems in the world. It produces the most educated people, and it's also one of the most happiest countries in the world. So what does Finland do differently? They invest in their teachers. What does that mean? They train them, and they also respect them. They recognize the role of teachers. So now we stumble upon again to something much larger. Everything is connected. Now before I say this word, I must admit this word is the one that I used to avoid at all costs. Holism. Holism means that parts of a whole cannot be studied separately or understood separately. We see this in the world that we interact around. We see this in nature. We especially see this in learning. Now, if you're thinking, that should be the damn default, why are schools still teaching without real-life context? Then you're asking the right question. Now, I have a question for you. Why do we learn? Why do we learn at all? To get a job, duh. But while that's necessary and keeps the lights on, it's incomplete. We learn so that we can become a fully capable human being to live a life of meaning, of connection, of purpose. We learn so we can become capable to understand the world enough to fix it. That's amazing, right? That's how things should be done. What we don't understand is the opposite of this is societal failure. Now you're thinking, that's harsh. She's going extreme. what happens when people can't follow how decisions link up? They fill these gaps with suspicion, and that's how we get controversy theories. That's how we get people who can't understand things that require basic critical thinking. So we have to move urgently and unapologetically to a new system, from an industrial education model to an agricultural education model, because factories produce, farms cultivate. To make the seed grow, the farmer doesn't force it. She provides the right conditions, the nutrient soil, the right amount of light, and access to water. She understands the ecology of growth, and so should we. Moving into this new system also means, and I know this sounds radical, looking at the person sitting next to you and realizing that they're not your competition. They're not the obstacle to your success. More often than not, they're the ones who will help you get there. So, to the teachers, children, students in this auditorium, practice connection. Seek people with perspectives different than yours. Build teams that don't look or think exactly like you, because the challenges we have today are way too big for any one mind. We can't keep graduating students into this workforce that in many ways doesn't exist anymore. What does that mean? That means the future belongs to those who can connect ideas with people. The future belongs to those who can see the world as a network of millions. I'm going to leave you with one thing. If we dare to reimagine education this way, we won't just survive the next few years. We will thrive and we'll create our future. Thank you.